David Hadley was a double agent. The Americans did not want him to be fully exposed, so all that he probably shared with the Americans was not shared with us in terms of intelligence. If we had that, I'm sure that we would have been able to deal with the situation far better.
This and more streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
Hello and a very warm welcome. Thanks for tuning in to News 9 Live. I'm Kabir Naqvi and you're watching top stories from our studios here in the National Capital Region, your one-stop shop to understand what the news pulse of the day essentially looks like. We have an expansive list of stories to cover. We will cut across to domestic political developments here back at home and in our segment Heralding 2024 where we talk about what the next year has in store for us vis-a-vis the presidential elections, the various kinds of conflicts and protests that are taking place across the world. Infotainment and climate change is also something that we delve and touch upon here at News 9. But first and foremost, we're going to shift our focus to the West Asian conflict between Israel and Hamas. The following content may contain visuals that are disturbing, graphic, or sensitive in nature. Viewer discretion is advised. This material is intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for all viewers. Please exercise caution while watching, and if you find such content distressing, we recommend discontinuing viewing. This disclaimer is provided to ensure awareness and to prioritize viewer well-being. Israel battled Hamas terrorists on Saturday in pursuit of its elusive goal of full control of the northern Gaza after the United Nations Security Council appeal for more aid for the Palestinian enclave. And all of this is happening whilst Joe Biden has given a call to Benjamin Netanyahu. The contents of that conversation remain a secret.
Doctors attend to wounded patients in a tent in Jabalia as the fighting in northern Gaza raged on Saturday. Residents reported persistent aerial bombardment and shelling from Israeli tanks, which they said had moved further into the town. It follows an appeal from the UN Security Council for more aid for the Palestinian enclave, though it stopped short of demanding a ceasefire. U.S. President Joe Biden spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Saturday about the situation in Israel and Gaza.
I had a long talk with Netanyahu today, and it's a private conversation.
While leaving for Camp David, Biden told reporters he did not ask Netanyahu for a ceasefire. Israel's main ally has kept up its support while expressing concern over the growing casualty toll and humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Netanyahu's office said in a statement, the Israeli leader, quote, made clear that Israel will pursue the war until all of its objectives are fully met. At least 201 Palestinians have been killed over the past 24 hours, taking the death toll to over 20,000 during the 11-week conflict, the Palestinian Health Ministry said on Saturday. Thousands more bodies are believed trapped under rubble. Hamas's armed wing said it had destroyed 5 Israeli tanks in the area, killing and injuring their crews after reusing 2 undetonated missiles launched earlier by Israel. Reuters could not independently verify the report. Israel said more than 140 of its soldiers have been killed since it launched its ground incursion in response to an October 7 rampage by Gaza's ruling Hamas militants. 1,200 people were killed and 240 hostages were taken back into the enclave. Hamas said on Saturday it had lost contact with a group it said was responsible for 5 of the Israeli hostages due to Israeli bombardment. More than 100 hostages are still believed to be in Gaza.
Meanwhile, the Israeli army yet again released a video on its social media platforms that showed an extensive network of tunnels that were built by Hamas. Now, the tunnel complex has electricity boxes and blast doors inside it, and the Israeli army are sending in their dog squads with cameras to explore these tunnels. Meanwhile, the death toll in amid this conflict, and in Gaza is on the rise with each passing day, and entire families have been wiped out. As per a story being reported in The Guardian, 70 members belonging to an extended family were killed in an Israeli military strike, according to the United Nations officials. Amongst the dead was a veteran UN aid worker as well. The head of the UNDP said that a man named Issam al-Mughrabi, his wife and 5 children and dozens of other relatives were killed in a bombing near the Gaza city. The statement from the UNDP read that the loss of Issam and his family has deeply affected us all, and the United Nations and the civilians in Gaza were not a target. The UNDP statement urged for an immediate ceasefire and said that the war must end now. On the other hand, the Israeli military has ordered more Palestinians to leave their place as the military looks to expand its ground operations in the central zone of the Gaza Strip. In leaflets that were airdropped over Gaza, the IDF asked refugees in central Gaza's Burej camp and surrounding areas to evacuate for their own safety and move southwards towards shelters in Deir al-Balah. The Deir al-Balah shelters are already overwhelmed by a large influx of Palestinians who are fleeing from the ongoing bombardments. And since the beginning of the war in early October, about 85% of Gaza's 2.2 million population has been displaced, as per the UN relief agency UNRWA. Well, now this is happening inside the Gaza Strip. Let's tell you what's happening on the other side of the fence, where demonstrators in Tel Aviv's Hostages Square persisted in urging the Israeli government to ensure the release of the remaining hostages. Simultaneously, another group convened a distinct rally against the Israeli government at Habima Square in the capital city. And despite the short distance between these two locations, numerous protesters actively participated in both demonstrations, reflecting a shared resonance of sentiments amongst the gatherers.
There was an investigation that our Prime Minister gave money to the Hamas terror movement, and that the money that he gave them was the money that allowed them to do what they did. So I don't like it.
We need to make sure that Benjamin Netanyahu will go away. He makes more harm than good. And he betrayed the people, the absolutely traitor. So we want him to go. We've been protesting for a year now, and it's just getting worse. So it needs to be now.
At the moment, I'm finding it quite hard not to totally despair. I've been holding strong for a long time and trying to think that good things can come for us in terms of hostages returning, and at the moment we are subjected to the most horrific psychological warfare by Hamas. I'm from a kibbutz that we still have over 30 hostages held in Gaza, and every time there's this week that there was a video that was people that I know my whole life. I'm extremely worried. I'm extremely worried about my dad, who is held hostage, from which we don't know anything about him for the last 9 or so weeks. We know he arrived alive in Gaza, but we don't know what is his condition now. And it's every day you wake up and you remember that it's the 7th of October did happen. And every day you learn new details and new horrific details about what happened. And you just try to keep busy. Do something that brings them back. Do something for those poor people that we love so much who are there.
Well, the land conflict, it seems, has shifted its focus and has moved into the Red Sea and the entire Mediterranean. A Gabon-flagged vessel, MV Sai Baba, carrying about 25 Indian crew members, survived a drone attack by Yemen's Houthi rebels. The Indian Navy reports that all crew members are safe post the attack. Now, this incident is part of a recent spate of attacks, with 2 vessels falling prey to the Houthi drones, as reported by the US Central Command. Now, according to the official statement, on the 23rd of December, Houthi rebels fired 2 anti-ship ballistic missiles into the southern Red Sea from their controlled areas in Yemen. No ships were reported to be impacted by these potentially catastrophic missile attacks. Meanwhile, Iranian foreign minister has rejected US's accusations that Iran is quote unquote deeply involved in these attacks by Houthi rebels on Israeli-linked commercial ships. This in the Red Sea. He dismissed the allegations, asserting that the Houthi were acting independently.
We frankly told the US side that they, the Yemen-based Houthis, made the decision according to their own position. We've never ordered them to do anything. Neither will we order them to stop taking action. For us, regional security is very important. We are not seeking to expand the scope of war. The solution to the problem is not to establish a so-called coalition in the Red Sea, but to stop the bloodshed of women, children and civilians in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank.
Now, there's another drone attack that we must shift our focus to. A merchant vessel carrying a crew of 23, including an estimated 21 Indians on board, faced a suspected drone strike in the Arabian Sea off the Gujarat coast. The US Department of Defense disclosed on Sunday that the aerial attack originated from Iran. And according to a Pentagon spokesperson, the motor vessel Chem Pluto, a Liberia-flagged, Japanese-owned and Netherlands-operated chemical tanker, was targeted around 10 a.m. local time in the Indian Ocean, about 200 nautical miles from the coast of India. The strike was executed by a one-way attack drone launched from Iran, according to the United States' Central Command. Now, the Indian Navy sent in a P-81 patrol aircraft and a warship to aid the Liberian-flagged ship Chem Pluto, which began its journey with crude oil from Al Jubail in Saudi Arabia on the December 19th.
See, the Houthis, who are backed by Iran, have been interfering with the commercial shipping along the Red Sea to prevent Red Sea being used, and thereafter the Suez Canal also. It is in that context that these drone attacks have been launched by the Houthis. It is with a view to put pressure on the world that anyone who supports Israel in terms of the way they are bombing in Gaza, they would not let any commercial shipping pass that way. They've been saying that it is only against those countries which are supporting Israel. But it is very difficult in merchant shipping to be able to identify as to whether the ships are for Israel, because our ship was carrying chemicals from Saudi Arabia.
Meanwhile, the United States intercepted 4 drones launched from the Houthi-controlled areas in Yemen, targeting a US destroyer in the southern Red Sea. These incidents now mark the 14th and the 15th attacks on commercial shipping by Houthi terrorists since the 17th of October. And according to US Central Command, this is in fact the 15th attack, drone-based unmanned aerial attack in the Red Sea, this time on USS Laboon in the Red Sea. This is a United States destroyer. Now, the CENTCOM tweeted about the same, saying that on the 23rd of December, 2 Houthi anti-ship ballistic missiles were fired into international shipping lanes in the southern Red Sea from Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen. No ships were reported being impacted by the ballistic missiles. The CENTCOM added that the USS Laboon was patrolling in the southern Red Sea as part of Operation Prosperity Guardian. And you can see Austin Lloyd there on your screens. He traveled all across West Asia, went to Israel as well, got into a huddle with all these nations to protect operations and commercial shipping in the Red Sea, beg your pardon. Now, the United States has shot down 4 unmanned aerial drones originating from Houthi-controlled areas in Yemen, according to the statement. These were inbound to the USS Laboon. No injuries or damage in this incident has been reported. The Houthi actions disrupting global trade in response to Israel's Gaza conflict include a near miss on a Norwegian-flagged tanker and an attack on a Gabon-owned oil tanker. Additionally, 2 Houthi anti-ship ballistic missiles that we just mentioned were fired into international shipping lanes. No ships were reported to be impacted. Now, the U.S. initiated Operation Prosperity Guardian, a collaborative effort with over a dozen countries to patrol the Red Sea and the entirety of its waters and counter Houthi interference in the Bab el-Mandab Strait. Well, time for us to slip into a quick break over here. Meanwhile, let us help you stumble upon Money9's application, your secret weapon for mastering finance and thriving in the economy. Dive into unparalleled financial wisdom with Money9, the ultimate application to decode finance and pocket real-time cash. Grab control of your financial journey starting now.
जानना है तो देखिए, समझना है तो सुनिए, सीखना है तो पूछिए और कमाना है तो खरीदिए। जानकारी, सलाह और निवेश सब एक ही सुपर ऐप पर। पैसे का सवाल है तो जवाब है मनी9। आजादी पैसे की, अभी डाउनलोड करें।
Welcome back. You're watching News 9 Live. Now, India is home to about 140 crore plus people. So many families, so much of income. But have you ever wondered, where do they save? How much do families actually end up earning? Well, Money9 has done this exclusive survey to understand the personal finance pulse of what's really happening in the country. Some of those statistics and data will throw up on the screens. Meanwhile, if you do want to catch up on the entirety of the survey, it's available on the Money9 application and on our websites as well. Shifting our focus to how families are cashing their savings. Now, 67%, according to the survey, and it's a large sample size, 67% opted to cash in, while 33% refrained from doing so. And moving on, to understand why majority of Indian families choose to cash their savings, it's important to analyze the reasons behind cashing these savings. Now, reasons for families that are cashing their savings. Medical treatment tops the list at 22.3%, followed by business losses at 15.2%. Education, it's a costly affair these days, stands at 11.2%. Marriage, another one of those costly affairs in today's times and contemporary day and age, stands at 8.2%. And loan repayment at another 8.2%. Tragically, 2.3% has been attributed to the demise of the sole breadwinner in the house. In the meantime, let's take a closer look at where Indian families are directing their financial investments. Cities where families buy most of the insurance policies. Now, in 2023, it was Madurai in Tamil Nadu that topped the list for families purchasing insurance policies at a staggering 84%, followed by Amravati at 79% and Aurangabad at 76%. Makes sense because these are part of the financial capital, Maharashtra. On average, 27% of families opted for insurance, marking a significant rise from the previous year's 19%. Now, when it comes to investing in gold, the yellow metal, Bengaluru led the pack in 2023 at 69%, trailed by Thiruvananthapuram, both south cities at 66%, and then Darjeeling at 59%. Now, the average gold investment stood at 21%. So, these south states and cities are definitely investing a higher amount, showcasing an increase from the previous year's 15%. Meanwhile, percentage of Indian families that actually invest. Switching gears to overall investment trends, the percentage of Indian families investing saw a slight rise from 22% in 2022 to a 2% increase to about 24% in the year 2023. Conversely, 76% chose not to invest, which was a decrease from the previous year's 78%. These figures illuminate the shifting preferences in financial investments, where Indian families are increasingly favoring insurance and gold investments, with overall investment percentages on the rise. Now, let's see where their expenses are actually going. Where do Indian families spend? A significant chunk, 19%, is allocated to groceries. Of course, well, why not? With fuel and clothing each accounting for 8% of the expenditure. Education fees make up 10%, while utility bills and medical expenses both stand at 8% of where families end up spending their income. Rent comprises another 3%, followed up by loan repayments at 4% and credit card expenses at 2%. An additional 8% is allocated to miscellaneous expenses, whilst an impressive 18% has been set aside for savings in general. These figures paint a vivid picture of how Indian families are managing their expenses, prioritizing essentials like groceries and education, while setting aside notable percentage for saving. But now let's turn our attention to the financial landscape of Indian families. It's intriguing to note the evolving trends in borrowings as well. Families that have taken a loan. Now, we observe a significant rise in families that are taking loans, jumping from 11% in 2022 to 22% in the year 2023, indicating a shift in financial strategies. And interestingly, the majority, constituting 78% in 2023, have chosen not to opt for loans, maintaining a more conservative approach. Further dissecting the loan landscape, 11% are personal loans, 8% are home loans, 4% are auto loans, and 2% are education loans, unveiling the diverse borrowing preferences within a particular family structure. Delving into financial security concerns, While 6% feel secure in 2023, a slight increase from the previous year's 5%, 19% express a feeling of being less secure, a substantial 36% consider themselves unsecure, and another substantial 38% feel totally unsecure, reflecting the varying degrees of financial stability amongst families. These numbers provide valuable insights into the changing borrowing dynamics, loan preferences, and the spectrum of financial security sentiments prevailing amongst Indian families. You can catch the entire data on the Money9 application, or you can log on to our website for more understanding. Empirical data, a huge sample size, some 24-25 criteria that we have gone through as well. Right at the cusp of ending 2023, ringing in the new year. But what does the new year have in store for us? Heralding 2024, our segment that's coming up next. Well, quickly bringing you an update from the United States vis-a-vis Donald Trump's court trial fiasco. The U.S. Supreme Court has declined to immediately decide former President Donald Trump's claim that he cannot be prosecuted for trying to overturn his 2020 election defeat, allowing a lower court to continue reviewing the issue. Now, the justices, rebuffing an extraordinary request by U.S. Special Counsel Jack Smith, refused to effectively leapfrog a lower appeals court to speed up a final ruling on Trump's claim of criminal immunity ahead of his trial that is due to begin in March 2024. Trump hailed the decision on his Truth Social site, where he wrote that the Supreme Court had unanimously rejected deranged Jack Smith's desperate attempt to short-circuit the Constitution. The court issued its decision without explanation in a brief one-page order. No justice publicly dissented. The justices could, however, still decide to consider the issue later on. Meanwhile, at the Turning Point Action Conference, Republican candidate Vivek Ramaswamy vowed to pardon peaceful January 6th Capitol attack participants, calling it an intentional intelligence failure. 538 polling shows Ramaswamy with 4% GOP primary voter support, while Trump leads at around 63%.
Why am I the only candidate in this race who can say certain things? That January 6th was the product of entrapment, that our money is being sent to persecute Christians from Ukraine to Armenia, something you're not supposed to talk about, to the fact that the climate change agenda is a hoax because it has nothing to do with the climate and everything to do with China.
And moving on, initial results from the Democratic Republic of Congo's presidential election are emerging with accusations of rigging. Incumbent President Felix Tshisekedi is leading based on votes from Congolese living overseas. Main challengers include Moise Katumbi, Martin Fayulu, and Nobel Peace Prize winner Dr. Denis Mukwege. Results from the 44 million voters within the country released starting Saturday. Logistic challenges include late start times and delays in delivering materials affecting the polling stations. The Electoral Commission extended voting to accommodate all eligible voters. Foreign election observers from the Carter Center call for an increased transparency as the vote counting process continues.
The issues that certainly that we will be making recommendations about, and we have been making recommendations about, is to increase transparency, to increase the openness to all of the stakeholders and to the public, and to give that information. And I think a key example of that would be, there were problems on election day, but the CENI has not officially said, for instance, how many polling stations opened late, how many polling stations didn't open on December 20th, as far as I've seen.
Meanwhile, some opposition candidates are calling for a rerun. Provisional results are expected on the 31st of December, with the president-elect sworn in on the 20th of January next year. Well, time for us to slip into a quick commercial break here. Lots more continues right on the other side. Keep watching News9 Live.
Pakistani spy agency ISI's sinister plan to target India. Training women to honey trap top civil and military officials. Counter honey trapping ops initiated by India. But gullible victims still caught in the web. Top military intelligence experts break down the web of deception. Colonel Hani Bakshi explains the phenomena of honey trap.
जहाँ पे भी आपको लगेगा, उनको लगेगा कि there is a person who is susceptible to women, who's making a lot of women friends on the social media. That is where they will make a spoof account and then start luring the person.
Colonel Pavitran Rajan decodes the psyche of the victim and the predator.
But when you go up the chain, no one enforces it to people at the top. That disciplinary regime and the security regime is not enforced at the top. And they usually have a public profile where it is much more easier to approach that person.
A News 9 special on how modern technology has added teeth to the ancient spying tactic.
Our story takes you inside Pakistan's honey trap machine.
This and more, streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
It was my 14th birthday.
On birthday, daughter waits
for missing father.
He was carrying a cake for his daughter.
49-year-old Birmingham-based
Indian diplomat vanishes.
He was grabbed and bundled into a car by 4 assailants.
KLA claims responsibility. Demands Kashmiri separatists.
Maqbool Bhatt's release.
Goli maro, aur feck do.
And within 3 days, they shot him dead.
Abducted diplomat.
Found murdered in Leicestershire.
I said, who ordered to kill him? To me, he said, I ordered it.
And he never came home.
Stop searching, start streaming. Download the world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus, ahead of the curve.
Welcome back. Thanks for sticking around. Shifting our focus to some domestic developments, how political chess pieces moving on the political chessboard back at home, and some crucial developments. Because in another big development, in the WFI versus Wrestlers' saga, the recently elected body of the Wrestling Federation of India has now been suspended completely. The suspension by the Union Sports Ministry comes just 3 days after the body was elected on the 21st of this month. The reason cited by the Sports Ministry is that the newly elected chief, Sanjay Kumar Singh, had announced conducting the under-15 and under-20 nationals for wrestling without giving sufficient notice to the participating wrestlers. In an official release, the Sports Ministry said that the announcement for the national competitions were hasty and that the due process was not followed. The ministry detailed that the announcement by Sanjay Singh was against the rules, as a minimum of 15-day notice was needed for the wrestlers to prepare for the competitions. The Sports Ministry statement also made a big allegation on the newly elected body, saying that the body appeared to be in complete control of the former office bearers and was in complete disregard of the sports code. Meanwhile, the statement, without naming, refers to Brij Bhushan Singh, the previous president of the Wrestling Federation of India. Brij Bhushan Singh, has been accused of sexually harassing several of the female wrestlers. In view of the latest development, BJP President JP Nadda held a meeting with former WFI chief Brij Bhushan Singh.
संजय सिंह भुइहार बिरादरी के हैं, यानी कि मेरे वो रिश्तेदार नहीं है। आनन फानन में पुरानी कमेटी को एक निर्णय लेना पड़ा। अंडर 15 और 20 क्योंकि 31 दिसंबर को इनका ये सत्र समाप्त हो जाएगा। उसके बाद अगर ये टूर्नामेंट होता है तो उनका 1 साल खराब हो जाएगा। इसलिए सारी फेडरेशनों ने मिलकर ये फैसला लिया कि किसी तरीके से खेल का एक वातावरण शुरू हो, और नंदिनी नगर में इसलिए रखा गया क्योंकि हर फेडरेशन के लोगों ने हाथ खड़ा कर दिया कि 4-5 दिन के अंदर हम कोई व्यवस्था नहीं कर सकते हैं। उस मीटिंग में एक तरीके से मेरे विदाई का जैसे परंपरा होती है, कोई अध्यक्ष रहता है और तो उसको एक तरीके से जब वो छोड़ता है अपना कार्यकाल तो एक विदाई समझ लीजिए और 2-4 शब्द बोलना पड़ता है। तो इस नाते मैं भी वहां पर गया था और ये बच्चों का 15 साल के बच्चों का और 20 साल के बच्चों का साल खराब ना जाए और खेल का वातावरण फिर से शुरू हो, इसलिए नंदिनी नगर में इसे कराने का फैसला आम सहमति से लिया गया। 25 के 25 फेडरेशनों ने अपनी लिखित और मौखिक दोनों सहमति दे रखी है। खैर मुझे इस पर कुछ नहीं कहना है और मैंने 12 साल तक कुश्ती के लिए काम किया। अच्छा किया या गलत किया इसका मूल्यांकन समय करेगा और एक तरीके से कुश्ती खेल से मैं संन्यास ले चुका हूं, मतलब कुश्ती से मैं अपना नाता तोड़ चुका हूं। अब जो भी फैसला लेना है, सरकार से बात करना है या कानूनी प्रक्रिया को अडॉप्ट करना है, ये चुने हुए जो फेडरेशन के लोग हैं वो अपना फैसला लेंगे। मैंने कुश्ती से संन्यास ले लिया है, मेरा लोकसभा का चुनाव आ रहा है और भी मेरे पास बहुत काम है। तो अब जो भी कहना होगा, सरकार से बात करनी होगी या कोर्ट में जाना होगा, इससे मेरा कोई लेना देना नहीं है। अब ये नई फेडरेशन करेगी। अभी भी मैं सरकार से निवेदन करूंगा और खेल मंत्रालय से, विशेषकर खेल मंत्रालय से निवेदन करूंगा कि हो सके तो इस टूर्नामेंट को करा लें, अपने देखरेख में करा लें, दिल्ली में करा लें, जिससे बच्चों का 1 साल बर्बाद ना हो।
तो कह रहे नियमों की अनदेखी की गई, वो उस पर क्या कहना चाहिए, इसलिए सस्पेंड किया?
वो पूरी बात मैंने बता दी।
सर जेपी नड्डा जी से क्या बातचीत, क्या मुलाकात हुई, क्यों गए थे मिलने आप? उन्होंने बुलाया था या आप खुद गए थे?
देखिए वो मेरे नेता हैं, हम उनसे मिलेंगे, मिलते रहेंगे, लेकिन इस संबंध में मेरी कोई बात नहीं हुई। मैं कुश्ती से 21 दिसंबर को ही अपना नाता तोड़ चुका हूं। लोकतांत्रिक तरीके से, प्रजातांत्रिक तरीके से, सरकार की ही इच्छा पर, सुप्रीम कोर्ट के आदेश पर चुनाव संपन्न हुआ, पूरी बॉडी बन गई है, पूरे के पूरे मेंबर चुने जा चुके हैं। अब उनको सरकार से बात करना है या उनको कहीं कानूनी सलाह लेना है, तो ये मेरा काम नहीं है। मेरे पास बहुत काम है। संजय सिंह भुइयार हैं और मैं राजपूत हूं, क्षत्रिय हूं, तो संबंध हो सकता है, दोस्ती हो सकती है, कुश्ती से जुड़े हैं वो 15 साल से, तो कुश्ती में कौन ऐसा है जिससे मेरी जान पहचान नहीं होगी या मेरे संबंद नहीं होंगे? देखिए यौन शोषण का जो प्रकरण है वो अदालत में विचाराधीन है। इस पर उस पर कोई टिप्पणी करना उचित नहीं है और व्यक्तिगत मुझको क्या कहता है, कोई क्या कहता है, इससे मुझे कोई लेना देना नहीं है। 11 महीना से गरिया रहे हैं, जो नहीं कहना चाहिए वो भी कह रहे हैं, उनको मुबारक। देखिए ये फर्स्ट डे से ही इसमें राजनीति है जी। अब आप देखिए कि कौन इसमें शामिल नहीं हुआ, कांग्रेस भी शामिल हुई, टुकड़े टुकड़े गैंग भी शामिल हुई, आम आदमी पार्टी भी शामिल हुई, तमाम लोग हैं। अब क्या क्या करें, हम तो अपना झेल रहे हैं।
सर साक्षी मलिक पर क्या बोलेंगे? उन्होंने संन्यास लेने की भी बात की है।
तो हमने भी संन्यास ले लिया, खत्म बात। उन्होंने संन्यास लिया, हमने भी संन्यास ले लिया, खत्म बात।
देखिए, अभी मैं फ्लाइट में था, अभी मुझे बहुत डिटेल पता नहीं और उसका लेटर मुझे नहीं मिला है। वो लेटर लेने के बाद मैं उसको देख लेता हूँ, फिर बताता हूँ मैं उस पर आगे क्या करना है क्या नहीं करना है। बस अभी कोई कमेंट नहीं, अभी कोई कमेंट नहीं। पहले मुझे देख लेने, केवल एक सुनने में जो आया कि एक्टिविटी पे मेरे रोक लगाया है। तो अब क्या एक्टिविटी पे रोक लगाया क्या नहीं है, तो उसको मैं अभी देख लेता हूँ, उसके बाद करता हूँ। अभी कोई कमेंट नहीं, केवल एक्टिविटी पे जो सुनने में आया कि एक्टिविटी पे रोक लगाया गया है।
फैसले लिए गए
जो भी है, अभी कोई कमेंट नहीं है। इसके बाद मैं लेटर अपना देख लेता हूँ क्या क्या है क्या नहीं, उसके बाद मैं कमेंट करता हूँ।
Meanwhile, among the most prominent voices against Brij Bhushan have been Olympic medalists Sakshi Malik and Bajrang Punia. After Sanjay Singh, who is an aide of Brij Bhushan Charan Singh, was elected president of the WFI on the 21st of December, Sakshi Malik quit wrestling in protest and hung up her boots in a televised press conference. On the other hand, Bajrang Punia, he returned his Padma Shri award in protest on the Kartavya Path as well. Meanwhile, the Indian Olympic Association is now going to elect a new ad hoc committee in the next 48 hours to look after the day-to-day activities of the Wrestling Federation of India. This committee will take decisions regarding selection and tournament procedures, etc.
अभी मुझे पूरी जानकारी भी नहीं है कि सिर्फ संजय सिंह निलंबित हुए हैं या पूरी फेडरेशन ही रद्द कर दी। हाँ, तो अभी मेरे पास ना पुख्ता सबूत नहीं है, और सिर्फ आप लोग बस दिखा रहे हो, लेकिन कुछ रिटर्न में अभी आया नहीं है। और जो भी होगा वो मैं आगे आप सबके साथ ज़रूर बात करूँगी। और रही बात दूसरी, मैंने कल रात भी ट्वीट किया था, मैं 2 दिन से परेशान हूँ। जब से लेटर निकला है कि नंदी नगर कंपटीशन कराया जाएगा, तो मुझे वही सदमे में हूँ। वही बातें याद आ रही है कि दोबारा से वही नंदी नगर में कंपटीशन और लखनऊ में कैंप। तो मैं उन बच्चियों के लिए काफ़ी परेशान हूँ, काफ़ी दुखी हूँ, क्योंकि मेरे पास कॉल्स भी आई बच्चियों की रात को कि दोबारा से वहीं पे। तो मैं इस चीज़ को लेके काफ़ी परेशान हूँ।
अभी जो सरकार ने जो कार्रवाई की उसको आप किस तरह से देखते हैं?
देखो, पहले तो पुख्ता सबूत नहीं है कि ऑन रिटर्न नहीं आया है कि फेडरेशन रद्द हुई है या सिर्फ संजय सिंह को रद्द किया जा रहा है। तो रद्द किया गया है, तो जैसा भी मुझे प्रॉपर तरीके से पता चलेगा मैं आपके साथ ज़रूर बातचीत करूँगी।
आगे की रणनीति क्या है आपकी? अभी क्या इंतजार क्या कर रही हैं, आगे क्या करेंगे?
इंतजार यही है कि पुख्ता सबूत मिल जाए, रिटर्न में पता चल जाए कि क्या चीज़ रद्द हुई है, फेडरेशन है या संजय सिंह रद्द हुए हैं। तो जैसा भी होगा फिर आगे।
इस बयान के बाद बृजभूषण शरण सिंह ने पीसी की और कहा है कि मैं अब कुश्ती से संन्यास ले चुका हूं, मेरा अगला कदम लोकसभा चुनाव है। इस पर क्या कुछ कहेंगे?
देखो, वो उनका पॉलिटिकल है, वो उनका एजेंडा है, लेकिन हमारी जो लड़ाई है वो सरकार से ना तो थी और ना आगे रहेगी। हमारी लड़ाई सिर्फ एक आदमी से थी। हमारी लड़ाई जो है महिलाओं के लिए थी, फेडरेशन में जो बेटियां हैं, जो नए रेसलर्स हैं, उनके लिए थी। और बस ये लड़ाई हम लड़ रहे हैं अपने तरीके से, जैसे भी है। मैं तो संन्यास का मैंने अनाउंस किया है और बस यही चाहूँगी कि जो आने वाली बेटियां हैं, बच्चे हैं, उनको न्याय।
क्या साक्षी मलिक संन्यास वापस लेंगी? क्या संन्यास वापस लेंगी?
अभी मैंने बताया है, जैसा भी आगे होगा वो मैं फिर आपको बता दूँ।
संजय सिंह को नहीं जानता हूं। बयान आ रहे हैं,
वो आप फोटोज तो देख ही रहे होंगे सोशल मीडिया पे।
Well, you can vouch on News 9 to bring you all the latest details on this WFI versus the Wrestlers saga. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he interacted with a group of 250 students from Jammu and Kashmir. The students are on a 12-day exposure tour to Delhi and Jaipur as part of the Watan Ko Jano initiative launched by the J&K Rehabilitation Council. The students selected for the tour hail from almost all the different districts of Jammu and Kashmir and come from the underprivileged sections of society. The primary aim of the project is to provide these young minds with an opportunity to visit different parts of the country in order to foster social, cultural and emotional integration. Through initiatives like Watan Ko Jano, the J&K Rehabilitation Council seeks to bridge gaps and build connections amongst the youth from different states. Now, in the run-up to the January 22nd inauguration of the Ram Temple, why are Kovedar trees being planted in the Ram Temple complex of Ayodhya? What is the historical importance of the Kovedar trees? What was the relation of the Kovidar tree with the Ayodhya kingdom? Now, the first mention of the Kovidar tree is found in Harivansh Puran. A Sanskrit verse of Harivansh Puran asks, what kind of a tree is this? How did it get the name Kovidar? This is a beautiful and great tree. It was created by sage Kashyap by mixing the essence of mandar in the Kanchar tree. Now, during the Lord Ram's exile, when Bharat was bringing the army to meet Lord Ram, it was Lord Lakshman that had identified that this was the army of Ayodhya from the picture of the Kovidar tree that was depicted on the royal flag of Ayodhya that was mounted on the chariot. This proves that the picture of Kovidar tree was printed on the royal flag of the Ayodhya kingdom. Some historians that have also dealt in with their opinion and input on this. Listen in.
कोविदार वृक्ष का महत्व न केवल अयोध्या के साम्राज्य के लिए बल्कि संपूर्ण हमारी सनातन संस्कृति के लिए है। जब अयोध्या, जैसा कि हम जानते हैं कि अयोध्या भारत की हमारी सनातनी परंपरा की पहली नगरी है, पूरी है, सुरक्षित थी, तो इसकी संप्रभुता का प्रतीक, जैसे अभी हमारा राष्ट्रीय ध्वज है भारत का, तो जो राष्ट्रीय ध्वज होता है वो हमारे राष्ट्र की संप्रभुता का प्रतीक है। इसी तरह से कोविदार युक्त जो ध्वजा थी, जो उनका राज ध्वज था, वो अयोध्या की राज्य शक्ति की संप्रभुता का प्रतीक था। दूसरी बात है कि जैसे आज के हमारे राष्ट्रीय ध्वज में चक्र है, उसी तरह अयोध्या के राज्य ध्वज में ये कोविदार वृक्ष अंकित किया जाता था। वाल्मीकि रामायण ने अयोध्या कांड के 96 सर्ग का अर्थात चैप्टर, तो 96 चैप्टर में उस पूरे चैप्टर में कोविदार और अयोध्या के साम्राज्य का क्या अंतः संबंध है उसको दर्शाया है। और आपको ये मैं बताते हुए मुझे बड़ा हर्ष है कि राम, लक्ष्मण और भरत तीनों ही इस वृक्ष के महत्व से परिचित थे।
And while moving on, India is witnessing a resurgence of COVID-19 cases coupled with concerns about the JN.1 subvariant originating from the Omicron strain. The first JN.1 case was earlier reported in Kerala. The country at the moment has reported 752 new cases in the last 24 hours, with a spike in the active caseload, bringing the active caseload and the proper tally to 3,420 as per the update by the Health Ministry. On the other hand, in terms of global COVID resurgence, the World Health Organization has classified JN.1 as a variant of interest. The INSACOG chief, Dr. N.K. Arora, assures no extra vaccine dose is needed for the JN.1. And the symptoms of JN.1 are similar to Omicron variant, and experts advise remaining alert but not panicking. On the other hand, the Serum Institute of India has applied for a license for a JN.1 vaccine research. Let's listen in to what AIIMS Director Dr. Randeep Guleria said on the COVID-19 variant.
It is spreading more rapidly and it is gradually becoming a dominant variant as far as COVID-19 is concerned. Both in the US, in Europe, Singapore, and we are seeing more cases in India also. So it is causing more infection, possibly because it is more transmissible and taking over the older strains. But the data also suggests that it is not causing more severe infection, it's not causing more hospitalization, and most of the symptoms are predominantly of the upper airways like fever, cough, cold, sore throat, running nose, and body aches.
Sir, as of now, like COVID variant cases are also coming, flu, RSV cases are also rising. How to stay healthy in this particular season?
So this is the season when you will see viral infection, respiratory viral infections becoming more. Every year we see them, whether it's influenza, now COVID, and as you said, RSV and other viral infections. So, and that happens because of the temperature, because of crowding. It's a holiday season, people travel, so they will carry the virus with them. There is crowds and many of the crowds are indoor because of the cold weather, and that leads to the spread of infection in different in a number of people. So I would say what we need to do is, first of all, COVID appropriate behavior. Wash your hands regularly. If you have cough and cold, cough into your armpit or into a tissue so that you don't spread the infection to others. Avoid going to crowded places, especially if you have fever, cough and cold, because you may be spreading the infection to others. And if you are in the high risk group, that is if you have comorbid conditions like diabetes, chronic respiratory diseases, chronic kidney disease or heart failure, or you are in the older age group, then you should wear a mask if you go to a crowded place, or if you can avoid going to an indoor crowded place because you can catch the infection.
Sir, as of now, do you think there is requirement of a vaccine which is variant specific if I talk about JN.1?
You don't need a variant-specific vaccine. You need a vaccine which covers a broader, let's say, type of the virus. We have had multiple mutations. JN.1 is a sublineage of Omicron. So a vaccine which is made against Omicron will be effective against this variant also. But I think we need more data first to show what is the current immunity in the population and what is the protection that we are having based on the previous vaccination that we've got. Based on that only can we decide that do we need a new vaccine which covers the current circulating strain, and that is something that will have to be done on a regular basis because variants will keep changing. So if we say that we need a vaccine against this, then it may be something that you will need another vaccine after some time. So we need to have data as to how frequently do we need to vaccinate and what would be a good vaccine which would cover a broader range of variants which are there or which may emerge in the future.
Now, various states, including Delhi, have begun reviewing their COVID situations and preparedness. The situation prompts heightened measures in Dehradun's hospital, while Mizoram has urged adherence to COVID norms for the public. The overall global COVID cases have increased by 52%, prompting vigilance, but not panic at the moment. The AIMS has reassured people, stating that there's no need to panic, but to stay vigilant at the moment. Health officials in Assam and Jharkhand have affirmed preparedness and readiness for any surge in cases. On the other hand, the Assam Health Department has directed hospitals to gear up against the JN.1 subvariant. And next up, the agitation for the Maratha reservation is once again on the boil. Maratha Kota activist Manoj Jarange has announced that he will start an indefinite strike, a hunger strike at the Azad Maidan in Mumbai from the 20th of January. This to intensify his demand for the community's reservation. Addressing a massive rally in Bid district in the Marathawad region, Jarange claimed that crores of people from the Maratha community will come to Mumbai on the 20th of January. Meanwhile, Chief Minister Eknath Shinde, in a video message that said that the Supreme Court has accepted the curative petition filed by the state government pertaining to the Maratha reservation issue. He also informed that the Supreme Court has scheduled a hearing on the matter on the 24th of January and has quote-unquote opened a window of hope for the Maratha community. And news from the Jammu and Kashmir regions. Security forces have successfully intercepted a potentially dangerous situation near the line of control in the Akhnoor sector. According to the latest report from Jammu and Kashmir police, a significant recovery of arms and ammunition has in fact taken place. Some visuals that have been put out by the police itself. In a proactive operation, security personnel have retrieved a package dropped from a drone in the Akhnoor sector. The contents of this package are alarming. Authorities have discovered 6 improvised explosive devices, the IEDs, and 1 grenade. This incident underscores the persistent threat and challenges faced by the security forces in the volatile region. The recovery highlights the evolving tactics employed by those seeking to disturb peace in the area. The utilization of drones to transport and deliver such hazardous materials adds a new dimension to the security of the landscape. The security forces are maintaining vigilance and employing advanced strategies to thwart any attempts of destabilization as well. Meanwhile, the Indian Navy is all set to commission its newest stealth-guided missile destroyer, Imphal, at the Naval Dockyard in Mumbai on the 26th of December this year. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh will preside over the ceremony as the chief guest. This marks the formal entry of the 3rd Vishakhapatnam-class destroyer crafted by the Indian Navy's Warship Design Bureau and built by Mazagon Dock Limited in Mumbai into the Navy's fleet. Imphal, the first stealth-guided Indian naval ship that has been named after a northeastern city. And shifting our focus to some top global developments. In a southern Italian church, a nativity scene with 2 mothers alongside baby Jesus has stirred controversy. Priest Vitaliano della Sala's aim was to embrace diverse families in his parish, sparking outrage among staunch Catholics and politicians. Nativity scenes, common in Italy, now entangle in culture wars amid the nation's secular and multicultural shifts. From Italy, cutting across to the US-Mexico border, where unprecedented numbers of migrants continued crossing the US-Mexico border into Texas over the Christmas holiday weekend starting on the 23rd of December. Now, video footage depicted hundreds of migrants navigating barbed wires on the US side of the Rio Grande River, subsequently being detained by US National Guard troops. Among them were women and children, some dressed for the festive period as well. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador announced on Friday that his government would reinforce measures to contain migration. This statement followed a discussion with US President Joe Biden, where both leaders agreed on the necessity for increased enforcement at their shared frontier due to the disruptive impact of the migrant influx on the border trade. Next up to Cologne in Germany, where German police announced heightened security measures at the Cologne Cathedral on the 23rd of December, indicating a potential New Year's Eve attack. The move follows recent government warnings about the increased threat of Islamist violence. Tracker dogs will be deployed to check the cathedral after the evening mass, leading to its closure. On the Christmas Eve, security checks for all visitors has been scheduled, with an advisory to arrive early for the security checks. Specific details were not disclosed due to an ongoing investigation in the matter. Reports suggested that security authorities in Austria, Germany and Spain received indications of a potential Islamist group planning attacks during the Christmas and New Year festivities. And even as Christmas nears, Bethlehem and its streets, usually bustling, now echo with church bells. But the city in the Israeli-occupied West Bank remains nearly deserted this time around. Typically a focal point of the Christian narrative, Bethlehem marks the birthplace of Jesus.
This Christmas comes to Bethlehem in a different shape. Nowadays, Bethlehem, as any other Palestinian city, in mourning. We feel sad. So, in Bethlehem Municipal Council, we decided to cancel all festivities and celebration in Christmas season. So, we put this event in order to send a very clear message to the international community that Bethlehem rejects this aggression against our people in Gaza Strip. We are witnessing a genocide and ethnic cleansing in Gaza Strip.
But on the night of 23rd December, Santa Claus embarked on his annual journey from the Arctic Circle to bring Christmas joy to children worldwide. In the chilly surroundings outside Santa's residence in Rovaniemi in Finland, families gathered to enjoy Christmas songs and say their farewells to Santa. Prior to boarding his sleigh, Santa delivered a heartfelt message urging everyone to prioritize children's well-being and embrace peace.
The most important, of course, is the well-being of the children. So that would be the goal for all of us.
Christmas magic in the air.
So I think you have... At the moment, there are too many children around the world who live in poor or even dangerous conditions. We should make all possible things to make them feel safe. This has been a stormy year again. And another wish for me is that people could live in peace around the world. So it's time to go, I think.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, a verbal gift by Santa Claus to everyone. Meanwhile, on the night before Christmas Eve in Berlin FC Union's soccer stadium, it has transformed into a festive haven, packed with fans and illuminated by candlelight. The annual Christmas sing-along tradition, which began in 2003, when a handful of supporters sneaked into the stadium with mulled wine and cookies. And since then, the event has grown exponentially, with around 28,000 attendees each year since 2015, turning the sold-out stadium into a jubilant chorus.
in Zeiten eines ungleichen Kampfes und Schlachten.
Meanwhile, in northwest China's Xinjiang autonomous region, the synergy of cultural tourism and rural revitalization has transformed the entire area. Beyond its renowned natural beauty, snow-capped mountains, glaciers, grasslands, forests and alpine lakes, Xinjiang offers a unique blend of ancient city charm and local folklore. Notably, Heimu village in Altai prefecture has drawn nearly 40,000 visitors since December, captivating both local residents and tourists with its spectacular scenes. A variety of ice and snow activities, including skiing, horse-drawn sleigh riding and sightseeing, have heated up the enthusiasm of the tourists. Well, it is Christmas Eve, and on that note, we'll end this episode of Top Stories. Lots more will continue right on the other side. Many thanks for watching.
Bangalore traffic is an example of something that has gone wrong with our system.
We have more than 50 flyovers in Bangalore city. If flyover is a solution to traffic problem, Bangalore should not have traffic problem.
According to TomTom Traffic Index 2022, Bangalore is ranked as the second worst city in the world when it comes to traffic.
The speed limit at the ORR is 80 kilometers per hour, but our vehicle has only moved 10 kilometers per hour.
What Bangalore needs is a surgery, but what we have been offered repeatedly are band-aids.
Only on the world.